First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rukal Kadosh, double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone who are teaching this truth, and a shout out to Yakim that's out there in the four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. As we're coming into the times where eventually what's going to happen is this famine of the word's going to come in and you won't see us on the streets. But while we're still here proclaiming this truth, you know, calling our people back, that is the elect of us, blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, to come back to your true heritage, which is Israel, and the confusion of faith that be among us. If this truth resides in you, then you're an Israelite, despite what you may look like. You go back to being one of the 12 tribes, you know, because if the Spirit resides. And, you know, this is destroying Christianity and the idea that all can be saved. The Gentiles that Paul the Apostle was speaking of were those that had been raised in the Grecian society, which we all pretty much are now a part of, because, well, what is the hell doctrine? That comes out of Greek mythology, and yet stretched Christianity teaches that hell doctrine, which came from the Roman Catholic Church, which has been the deception all along. You know, that if you don't pretty much stay in the Roman Catholic Church, that you'd go to this place of eternal hell and fire, which they pull up those scriptures to try to justify people to stay in there. But really, those scriptures are referring to what's about to happen to this place. That this lake of fire, which they like to say is hell, and an eternal place, now it's just a one-time event. There's 200 million nuclear missiles destroy this place, Babylon the Great, which is America in the scriptures. That's going to create the lake of fire. So it's just being very descriptive of that day, you know. And many people are wanting that day to come. But to what end is it for them? Thus, you know, talking about these actual Gentiles, which are the other nations, they actually are thinking that they're a part of this because they just don't understand the word Gentile because they've been lied to, you know. And our people have been catfished, you know, into thinking that the image of the Most High is Caesar Borgia. So what's happening now is these other nations are taking a proverb against Babylon the Great, you know, the little horn, which I'm going to get into that, as we know that this little horn came up from the two rams. That is the European Union, the second beast, and of course the British Empire, you know. Thus came a little horn and subdued three kings that we know of as Spain, France, and England. That pretty much this little horn, America, Babylon the Great, you know, which has been more powerful. You know, George Carlin, what's kind of funny is he says America has only been in power since for a couple hundred years, yet it has waged more wars than anything in history. Yes. So this is the place of Babylon the Great, where both Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom would be suppressed together. So no, it's not the Vatican City. It is America. And now all these nations are coming against it. Persia has now fired missiles into Syria, proving that they are backed by the Syrian government, proving that they are there to stay, to take out all these terrorists, because they tried to do it again. They did a false flag terror attack against Iran. Iran already knows who's behind it. The Israeli state, ISIL, you know, which they like to say is Islamic State. Ah, man, it's the Israeli state, these so-called Israelis, the Zionists, Amalek. So, you know, we're going to pull out of Daniel. I'm going to read out of Daniel chapter 8, as I'd already read out of Daniel chapter 7. And it's talking about this little horn. I'm going to start in verse 7. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and broke his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. You know. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, which is talking about the revised Roman Empire. And for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. It's talking about America, Babylon the Great. Thus, when the so-called Battle of Independence and all that took place, which waxed exceedingly great towards the south and towards the east and towards the pleasant land. As the sign keeps on falling down, trying to get it not to fall down. It's one thing you can't control is the wind. I only have a... Alright. Yeah, I just tried to fix the 12 tribes sign, which obviously I can see why others have a harder wooden thing, but just try to do the best I can with what little I have. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. And who are the stars of heaven? It's talking about the Israelites, you know. We've been cast down, you know, we've been taken out of power, you know, for a long time, but thus we've been thrown down, you know, became slaves of this place, you know, the things that so-called made America great, you know, which Donald J. Trump is, you know, putting that out there. Yet he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. This is talking about when the original, you know, well, pretty much when the Romans had, when the daily sacrifice was taken away, it's talking about when Jerusalem had been captured, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down, you know, and that's, you could read more about that in the book of 1 Maccabees chapter 1. Yet and a host was given against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. Thus, you know, they started eating swine and doing all kinds of abominable things, which is why, you know, these so-called church people, what do they do right after church, man? They have a feast and they're eating pork and all kinds of abominable foods. And cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. And thus, you know, you still have that going on to this day, you know, pretty much. But this started in Jerusalem, when the daily sacrifice was taken away. And our people wanted, they personally wanted to become Grecian. They wanted to be like the other nations, and so they got a decree to do that. And they defiled the sanctuary. Then I heard one speaking, and another saying, and unto that certain which he spoke, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? And pretty much that's when we fell as a nation. Pretty much, you know, when Jerusalem was captured, the southern kingdom. And he said unto me, unto the 2,300 days shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And it shall come to pass, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then, behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And again, you know, this is talking about when the daily sacrifice was taken away and Jerusalem had been captured. We fell as a people. And so we've been living underneath these terrorists, you can pretty much say, which the main terrorist is Esau, the so-called white man. Jump down to verse 18. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face, touched toward the ground, but he touched me and set upright. And he said, behold, I will make thee known what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. And we're in that time now. Of course, you know, here's what's happening. You know, we know it as the Gog-Magog war, but Daniel also spoke of this. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. You know, and you're seeing them back in the power now. Media's what you would call your Russians, and Persia's what you call Iran. And again, now Persia's showing its show of strength. You know, that, yes, they will fight terrorists. In fact, their ships are a lot more faster than the so-called aircraft carriers that they once used against Iraq, yet now they're being chased after by Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his first king, now that being broken, whereas her four stood up, 4 kingdoms shall not stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Thus, in other words, America, the little horn, would be exceedingly great on its own, because this is the final kingdom. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And that happened when he took us down. All 12 tribes. You know, what they like to call Indians, the Seminole Indians, the tribe of Gad and Reuben were taken down, but all the Latin tribes were also taken down. You know, and then the southern kingdom was also brought in here by ships. We were brought into Egypt again by ships. And so we've been made to serve this empire, Babylon the Great. And through his policy, also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. You know, and what's that talking about? Well, you know, all the time they wanted to have a peace treaty, you know, so-called Thanksgiving, which they lie to you, by the way, you know, because it was really Thanksgiving. They murdered us, but they would celebrate and have these feasts every time, and that's coming up real soon, you know, where they celebrate these feasts, you know, how they took us down, because they said that, oh, well, you know, we will share the land with you, and we will not attack you. We come in peaceably, but had destroyed us because Esau lied. You know, you can talk about all the way to the Trail of Tears, and even after that, they wiped us out. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Let's talk about when the Most High himself, Yahweh Shai, and the angels come down to destroy this place, America, Babylon the Great. The vision of the evening and the morning was told is true. Wherefore shut up the vision, for it shall be many days. As I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days, afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. Well, it wasn't the time for that understanding, but now we're coming into that understanding as to who we are. We being the reincarnation of the prophets that were writing the visions. Now we have the full understanding of it, because now we know what thermonuclear missiles are, you know, which is more described in Revelation, but we know that Daniel came back as John the Revelator, because the visions are very similar, but just a little more detailed. Just like now we know the explicit details of what this cup of wrath of indignation is. Talking about these thermonuclear weapons. Their arrows shall not miss, but shall destroy many. The houses and stones shall be consumed thereof. And we're coming into that time, you know. All these smaller, what you like to call third world countries, have them. Everybody knows that North Korea really does have those missiles. And Esau is scared. But they can't do anything about it. Because at the same time, now they're trying to threaten Russia. Yeah, they're getting so proud in their heart that they're going to threaten Russia with a nuclear strike. You know, because they know that they're about to be defeated. So they're threatening Russia with a nuclear strike and a military strike, because they can't get into Syria, the Idlib province. The S-300 systems were delivered, so now they're going to threaten Gog-Magog, which leads to this final war. And at the same time, is pushing the mark of the beast, the RFID implant, and the brain chip. Elon Musk is coming out with even more shit, you know, for the brain implants, which is RFMD, radio frequency medical devices, which, you know, is done surgically, putting that mark into the forehead, which is all about Revelation 13, and that's coming up. And we're seeing that, you know, CNN is pushing it, you know, that your employer will soon ask you to take that chip, that you can't buy, sell, or trade. You can't even labor without having that chip. And that's being pushed. Right now it's being advertised, but eventually that will become mandatory. And we can see now, though, that, you know, the money structure is gone. You know, pretty much this place, these nations, they're hating America. They don't want to deal with America because they know that it's a sinking fund, that pretty much the money doesn't even exist. So why would they want to go through that? No, they're looking to trade among themselves. And France is saying that they need a newer leader, the UN NATO. I think that he's referring to Putin, you know, Macron. So you watch. The next time the United States talks about doing a strike on Syria, probably France is not going to back them, considering that, you know, that they will not have an ally. The only ally that they'll have is Amalek, the Israeli state in Levant. ISIL is the only one that's going to back the United States on a strike on Syria. The rest of the nations ain't going to back them. In fact, they're going to turn against the whore. They're going to hate her. Because they know that pretty much that Syria has agreed, has gotten rid of all their weapons, that the only people that have chemical weapons over there are the terrorists that are supplied by the United States themselves. So I hope all this has been edifying as we're watching Bible prophecy being fulfilled, the mark being pushed, the third woe coming quickly. For that, I want to say, Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakal Kadash, Brakatum. Until next time, Shalom.